The idea for PALS came to me after reading some letters from soldiers from the First World War. I came across one letter in particular, a young private who was part of a PALS battalion. He was writing to his fiancée and he was killed at the Battle of the Somme. So I began researching the Battle of the Somme, the PALS unit, and looking for letters from soldiers to their loved ones back home. I discovered the story of the Leeds PALS battalion, and they seemed to be a good representative of the PALS battalions from England and the fate that many of them befell at the Battle of the Somme. You know, when you hear the story about how some of the units suffered up to 80% casualties on the first day of the battle, it's very heartbreaking to realize that there was just this terrible coming together of old-fashioned ways of fighting war and industrial methods of killing people. And so it really devastated some English towns, and we wanted to tell the story to kind of bring life to just the numbers.
Influenced by the story of the Leeds PAL Regiment, students in Spain Park Theatre decided to create their own story to examine the human cost of the war. Students took on various responsibilities: costumes, set design and construction, special effects, and, of utmost importance, the script. Using the letters of soldiers in the trenches and their loved ones back home as inspiration, a small group of students began crafting a story of a young soldier, his pals, and the girl he left behind.
Writing the show was actually it was very difficult, especially for a group of high schoolers, because we don't have much life experience, and you have to kind of try to figure out how does a person who is like seeing death and looking into the face of death and dealing with all these adult problems that the characters in the show are dealing with, you have to kind of figure out how they think and to get in the heads of those characters. And being 17 years old and living a privileged life, it's really hard to kind of get in that mindset. But luckily for us, St. John managed to find some letters, actual letters from World War I soldiers writing home to loved ones and family members and things like that we could read to kind of, just get a glimpse into their life and their struggle. And through that, we were able to write the characters and eventually the whole show.
As the play is set in Leeds, students begin the challenging task of learning a Yorkshire accent and the unique dialect found in and around Leeds.
The accents for this show were an English Yorkshire dialect, which is really hard. I like accents, they're one of my favorite things to work on, but this was a really hard accent to learn. It was basically taking the estuary accent and modifying it through a couple signature sounds from Yorkshire. We had Mark Castle come in and talk to us about it, which was really cool. We tried to get the accents to sound like they were all from the same place.
In the effort to make the play feel more authentic, students set out to recreate the uniforms of the PALS regiments. The tunics, pants, puttees, and webbing were all sewn by students as they outfitted the actors with the uniforms of 1914 British troops.
For the model that we use for these costumes, we had to do research on World War I uniforms. We had to have the soldiers and the officer. Now, both of them have their own distinct traits, like a certain amount of buttons or a certain shape of the collars, and it's completely different from how it is now. So all the research we had to get from torsos, the jackets, the pants, how the pants tuck in, the leg wraps, even the shoes, even from boots to shoes, the length, even the ties. All of that we had to do research on. I had to do research on, and after that, basically is all putting it all together. We try to be as precise as possible, specifically for this time in the war, this time period in the war.
So we went to various different websites and looked up photos of the battles and did what we could, and we actually found one that struck us, an overturned cart. It wasn't a military cart, it was just a farmer's cart that had been left as the family was fleeing from the battle, because they knew soldiers were on their way. So we decided to go with a cart for the soldiers to hide behind instead of the tank which we were originally planning on using. It would be lovely to do, you know, massive explosions and tanks rolling on stage and such things like that, but it's difficult to do, and it's not necessarily historically accurate. I'll give you an example of this. In our set design, we originally had a tank, a blown-out tank on stage, an iconic symbol of World War I, the Mark V British tank. First tanks they rolled into battle. Once they rolled them in, they were very effective, really solidified trench warfare. The problem is, the battle we're depicting is the Battle of the Somme, and the Battle of the Somme occurred exactly 1 month before the first tanks were introduced into battle.
Well, for this production, we were given the theme of the play, which is World War I, and then individual emotions that each scene portrays, and we made little tunes to go with those emotions, me and Riley, and then Caroline's playing the drums. So every piece, with the exception of 2 that were taken from that time period, every piece is original.
The sum total of their effort, musicians, costumers, set and sound designers, actors and writers, is an homage to the many men and women whose lives were forever changed by their experiences and losses, and to the world whose history was forever altered by the industrialization of war. We hope you'll join us for PALS, a Spain Park Theater production.